Hi, this is Ann, and I'm going to use a hand quilting hoop to paint my fabric today. Use it as a frame for my fabric. This is 100% cotton fabric, and I'm going to place it into my hoop and pull it as tight as I can, kind of like a drum. Tighten it up, pull it more, try and get any edge wrinkles out, any little creases. Then I'm going to use a mister or a spray bottle. Mister is better for this because it's such a small area. Normally I paint in a larger frame. And I'll just mist around to make the fabric just damp. And I do this so that the paint will move a little bit. This is just plain water. And I'll be misting throughout this paint job, and once it's damp I'm going to need to pull it tight again because that moisture made the fibers stretch. And to begin with, I'm just going to have 3 colors. I'm using Jacquard, which is a textile color for fabric, and I'm using a sky blue, black, and a white. And hindsight is that I should have put a little moisture, a little water with my white and mixed it around a little. It was chunky, which gave me a little bit of grief throughout this painting. But anyway, I just start, and I'm using just a funky cheap brush. And the brush was a little damp. I put a little bit of water, a little spritz of water with the paint. And if you know my other videos, you know that I've painted a lot. And I paint on fabric knowing that I will be stitching this, either hand stitching or machine embroidery, machine quilting. That's the way I approach anything that I paint on fabric, is that it's going to have needlework and thread work on it. So I act a little differently than if this was on paper. Now I'll be taking a little bit of the white and just mixing it in. There are different ways to paint. A lot of times, especially when I'm doing a large sky piece, I have my paint really watered down, and my canvas, which is just a thin cotton, very, very damp. And I like the paint to really move and flow and do the blooming and blend into itself. But this is a little different. This is a drier surface and drier paint, so that I can use it a little more like a person would paint on paper. I don't want it to do all the blooming and all the dripping and running and any of that. So I have a little bit more control with it all being a little more dry. And I usually really like these very inexpensive bristle brushes. I use them for texture in trees, and you'll see later in grass. And I just like the way that they pull across, and I can sort of trash them and not worry too much about them, taking good care of them. I will be using a round brush in a minute here to do the clouds. So I would suggest trying any kind of brush that you want to, that you feel comfortable with. You can use so many different, get so many different textures and designs depending on the kind of brush that you use. And I could have used more than just one blue. Just mix, try different things. So this is the round brush, and I have a little bit of black and a little bit of the white, and I'm just going to make some clouds, just kind of rolling my brush around and dabbing it up excuse me, into the sky. I could wait for the sky to dry and do this with on top of dry paint, but I like to just kind of keep moving while I'm at it. This is a paint that is more like an acrylic in that when it dries, it's dry, and it's not like a watercolor where I can reconstitute it when it's on my palette. So I want to just get it done as I have the paint out and can go forward with it. Does cause the blue to blend a little with my white, so it might keep the white from being quite as bright. But you can come in with the white and use it stronger. And after I do a little gray, I might want to take I think I even did that here, take a little bit of the white and put a little white on the top of the gray, making it a little bit of a silver lining, a little bit, make the black, the gray or other pop just a little bit more. You really can't go wrong with clouds. I think the sky is, you just see just about anything in the sky. So it's pretty simple. That's just, see, when you add that little bit of light behind that gray, causes the gray to pop out, giving a little more contrast, which gives a little more depth. So now I'm going to do the bottom, and I'm re-wetting it. And I have a yellow ochre and the blue that I had for the sky, and I'm mixing them, blending them a little, and keeping some of the yellow on there, not totally blended in, so that it'll drop a little highlighting grass. And so I'm in the distance, and I start with shorter strokes. This is where this funky brush is really good, I think, to use for some grass, the tops of grass in the distance. And I'll just continue on with that. You can see pulling some of the yellow on its own. Might go back and grab a little more blue. And remembering to add a little water to that palette to get the paint to flow a little bit better. And go onto the fabric. And as I was getting down here, I decided that since it's in a round, I would start curving the grass in a little bit. And when the fabric's seeming a little bit dry, I'll spritz the bottom. And notice when I spritz this again that I do it, I'm using a burnt umber I'm going to add now. But when I spritz this again, I'm doing it toward the hoop and not up by the paint, the green that I had just done. So I just have a little bit of paint. It doesn't take very much paint at all to do this. So I'm going to spritz now on my palette a little bit, mixing it in. So the strokes are getting darker as they come forward, and they're getting a little bit longer. And there's where I'm spritzing, and see, notice that I'm staying near the hoop because I know that water's going to flow, and if I do it up toward the grass, it's going to make that grass kind of mush and get blendy, which is not what I want in this piece. I want to see those grass stalks. So I'm curving it, I'm getting darker with it, the strokes are getting a little bit longer. And any light part, which is just the fabric, within this grass anyway, I'm going to leave. That looks a little to me like the seed pods on the grass. And again, because I know that this will be machine embroidered and then machine quilted, so I'm going to be putting other grass on top of this in thread work. And I'm just throwing some little bits of the darker with the brown up in the very top. So when I got this piece finished and I took it out of the hoop, I looked at it and I noticed that my horizon line is about smack in the middle of this, which just really bothers me. So instead of using it the way I intended, I'm going to cut 2 smaller rectangle pieces from it. This is my little frame that I used to find a nice area on it. And I'll go ahead and machine embroider and put those together and quilt. I'll have 2 pieces instead of 1. So I hope you'll watch that video. That'll be coming up.